on any of the stories we're doing.
Anything that we're talking about.
And we've got two new members today. Nick joins us from his taxi. Excellent.
Yeah, he's in it.
He's in Cheshire, and Sophie's from Thurrock in Essex. Well, Nick, we've got to come to you and your taxi first of all. Let's start with this big story of the day. Jabs for 16 and 17-year-olds. What do you think?
Well, I think it's really a question of personal choice. It shouldn't be, if you excuse the phrase, forced down their throat. I think the balance of risk for people of that age probably militates against taking the jab. But that doesn't mean to say it won't be right for everyone, because if they're particularly anxious, I don't see why they shouldn't have it. If they're part of a household that has particularly vulnerable people in it, they might choose to have it to help protect the other people in their household. But as a country, I don't think we should be forcing 16 and 17-year-olds to have it, either by law or by group pressure, because if you look at the side effects, if you look at the blood problems and so on that have been shown to occur, and the benefit and the risk from this, the equation is clearly, in my mind, for the bulk of their population not to take it. But that doesn't mean to say it shouldn't be available for those who would want to have it.
Made more sense from your taxi than anyone else I've heard in the last few days on this issue. So thank you for that. We're off to a good start.
We are, and welcome to Sophie. Let's get your thoughts. I believe you're 19 yourself. I mean, have you been vaccinated, and what do you feel about vaccinating those that are slightly younger than you?
Well, I haven't been vaccinated yet, and I don't believe that we should vaccinate people that are younger than us. There is no need to. We can, saying that we shouldn't be vaccinating young people now doesn't mean that we're not going to vaccinate them at all, doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to access the vaccine in the future. Do they need it now? Are the risks there for them to have it now? No. Can we wait for the science to progress and to know more about this vaccine? Yes, we can. We've seen the pressure that the government are putting on people like me to have the vaccine. We should be isolated from society, not be able to go to nightclubs, etc. if we choose not to have it. It's frankly un-British. We need, as a country, to stop trying to use our children as a barrier of protection to make ourselves feel better. They're kids, leave them alone.
Nick, just talk to Sophie about why you think it would be sensible for people of a certain age to think seriously, at least, about having a jab at that age.
Well, I think it depends very much on their personal circumstances. But I should say I very much agree with what Sophie was saying. But, Sophie, there will be some people who are maybe 16 or 17, and they've got an elderly grandparent who lives in their house who's got particular health conditions, and that 16 or 17-year-old might choose to have the jab. And I don't see there's a problem with them choosing to have the jab in those circumstances if that's what they want to do. Where I do agree with you, it's very un-British, is compelling people or trying to use moral suasion to force people, when it's not in their own personal benefit, to take a jab.
And Sophie, well, picking up on that, of course, the message has been somewhat mixed at times, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think that, by rolling over and saying, well, this could happen, that could happen, we're leaving the goal wide open to enable the government to bring in the measures that they've been longing to bring in about, vaccine passports. If we start allowing our kids to get vaccinated, then these measures are going to come in full force again and again and again. And we know that's going to happen. We're going to sit here and say that it's not going to happen. We're going to call people that are saying it's going to happen conspiracy theorists. We've done it before. We've walked down the same path and it's happened. So we need to put a stop to things quickly and say, leave our kids alone, stop dragging them as a barrier for us in this pandemic, stop isolating young people from society because they don't want a vaccine they don't really need. And let's just put a stop to it now before it gets to any further and we have conversations 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the line of how, you need to have a vaccine to get an education that we've had before. You need to have a vaccine to go into a nightclub that we've had before.
Sophie, let's stick with you for the next topic we're discussing today, and it is the government handling of education in the pandemic, because the Institute of Governments launched a scathing report, a really scathing report, unfortunately for them, for the Department of Education, on, the way it during the pandemic, it's handled various elements of education. I don't know, what are you doing at the moment? Are you at university or...?
No, so I'm actually in my last year of sixth form, so my results stays in a week today because I got caught up in the A-level fiasco. So I'm doing it again. My exams got cancelled the first time, resat the year so I could have a chance to get the grades I actually deserved and prove myself, only for them to get cancelled for the second year in a row.
So what's your experience been like over the last 18 months?
Oh, it must have been dreadful. Was it?
Yeah. You know, we've had these adults. Michelle was on earlier. I was listening to her come on and tell us that, you know, the performance has been fine, and all of these experts, trade unions, anti-teaching unions, I call them, have been the worst ones to tell us that the education young people have been receiving is adequate. It is not, because I spent my year 12 in the classroom and year 13 and 14 via Zoom, and it's not the same. You can't replace the classroom via Zoom. It's impossible. Not for, you know, people our age, but those little kids, when you go into school in primary school, it's not about necessarily, you know, learning your ABCs, although it's about learning skills like teamwork, social interaction. You can't do that via Zoom. It's impossible. Most people were using chat functions. We couldn't really speak to our teachers. It's been really difficult for us young people. We know for a fact that there are many people going to universities who do not deserve those places, and there are people who aren't going to universities in places that they do deserve to actually go. And that's the reality of it. It doesn't matter what side of the political divide you fall. The reality is there are people whose lives have been ruined by school closures, and people like me who are leaving school in our last year. These catch-up funds aren't going to help us. This extra time aren't going to help us. It's too late. Everything we've lost. We can't get it back.